Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Amar with ZenMaid. And today, I thought that we would have a chat about SEO and how it is working for me and Jeremy, because for both of us, SEO is a quite effective channel. I believe it's a quite effective channel for a lot of our competitors like us as well. And so I think
It's a
that
channel you can't
playing that
ignore.
game well, it's a channel that you can't ignore for sure. And playing that game well, I think is something that can lead to compounding results over time. So I think that anyone listening to this that's planning on keeping their business for the long run, I think should be focused on SEO with at least some of their resources, right? If you're gonna sell in, a year, then maybe not, but you may be valued at a lower amount for not having like as much like content and stuff like that. So anyways, yeah, I thought that we just chat about that a little bit. So SEO, I think everyone knows what it is, but it's just search engine optimization. It's essentially content or pages that rank for eyeballs on Google, Bing, Yahoo. I mean, really just Google if we're being honest. But yeah, that's essentially like what it is in a nutshell. And yeah, I mean, Jeremy, like, where would you say SEO like falls in kind of like your order of like marketing channels or whatever? It's pretty high up there, right?
I consider it, I consider two things. You have to play and have to wins. Okay. So the have to play is what gives you ability to play the game. And
Hmm.
have to wins is what makes you win the game. I think the SEO is in the have to play, right? So you have to
Agreed.
have it so people can find you, and then it gives you a chance to win. Like, for example, QuickMail's been for a very long time having like a superior product than some of our competitors, product wise. And so, but some of our competitors were really good at marketing, which means
Hmm.
our potential customer would never have heard of us. They would have heard of some of our competitors. And so therefore the choice of them is like, it's your competitors or another competitor, but not us. We were not appearing in the, so in this case, this is a clearly have to play that you need to have the SEO. Now we're playing a bit better SEO game, and suddenly more people get exposed to it, and so therefore we suddenly get like way more customers because we got the better product, and when people compare, then they go with our product. So that's how I would picture it. So I would more. So it's not for me a level of priorities, but it is like it's a cornerstone you have to nail down if you want to actually, go above the few friends secret tool that only a few of your friends are using, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would go that far. I agree in the long run. I think that SEO is like a must have
You're right. Depends on the
in
level of stage
in the
of your
long run.
product, because you can
Yeah,
do
because
other
like the whole
ways.
thing
Yeah.
is like, yeah, you all you have to do is you just have to find one channel to really get off the ground. But if you're looking for something
There you
that's
go.
going to be the sort of like compounding like lifestyle business that I think we're oftentimes talking about. Jeremy and I did a bunch of work on SEO like a couple of years ago that I would say really just now is probably beginning to pay dividends and will likely pay bigger and bigger dividends into the future because, each article gets more and more kind of like respect from Google, ranks higher like over time, you get more traffic there, and then that turns into more software customers. So,
I guess I have a slightly different approach to that, Amma, which is more
yeah.
sort of like scientific way of doing things for me specifically. And like a lot of things, like, okay, this last year we made tremendous progress in SEO with the help of Christian, who was dedicated to do that, last year. So that was like
Hmm.
awesome to have finally someone um, dedicated to improving this side of marketing. And there were some like really simple mistakes that we did that impacted us. And it's a bit like, you can imagine if you're trying to do a sprint and then we put you like, a massive bag, then you're not going
Hmm.
to go very, very far. And so
Hmm.
as you remove, things from the bag, or legacy or bad decision or bad
Yeah.
choice, then suddenly you start like,
Yeah.
wow, I can go that much faster. And so we had like problems with Canonical, Like we had like basically
Mhm.
2 pages, like we had like blah, 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 quick mail slash page one, for example, but also quick mail slash page one slash. And apparently, Google considered it as like 2 different pages. There was lots of things like that that diluted our efforts or was not
Mhm.
super optimized. So that's one part. And then the other part also that we discovered because before we never really paid attention to it, but we also have like negative SEO, which basically it's not something super well, that's not something I knew, right? Let's put it this way. But it basically is some services you can pay that has a lot of really shitty domain reputations, like 0, 1, or those sort of like very low domain reputation. Like you can find like domain spam type of things. And what you do is you actually pay them to put the URL of one of your competitors. And so what they do is they do that, and suddenly Google see like plenty of like a lot of massively low domain that also points to your domain. And so therefore they bundle it into this sort of like, spam domain or stuff like that. And they basically lower your domain reputation.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that until you kind of took me through that, I definitely was not aware that that was happening. I guess I'd kind of heard that in the past, but I don't think it had ever happened to someone like, as close to me as you, where I really heard about
Sure.
kind of like how that impacted the business and stuff. So I think it is an important thing to just like to
Just
be aware of. Yeah.
just one thing I would say is if this happens to you, just go and then add it to the disallow list that Google provides. And so that way you just say to Google, ignore those sites that link us. And that's it. So, you can just quickly check things with Ahref, for example. They will let you know what type of domain is leading to you. But you should also see it, I think, with Google Console or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just something to keep in mind. It could happen to you if you start to have too much competitors.
Yeah. So do you guys get quite a bit of traffic from like content marketing, right?
Yeah, but we also engineered this traffic, so it was a conscious effort, right? So as to
Well,
what it
I
point
just
to and stuff
I
like
just
that.
more mean it's content marketing, right? Like people are
Yes,
coming over and reading content. Okay, so
yes,
when you
mostly.
guys are like when you guys are writing the content or coming up with the content, can you take us through what's your process there? Because I think you've got a pretty well built out process, which is very, very different than my approach. So like, how do you guys sort of decide what you're going to write about and then go about actually creating the articles and
Yeah, well,
stuff?
that's not necessarily the thing I'd like to share per se as to our own process, because the problem with SEO is it's kind of a fixed part. You have a certain number of search per year, per month, for example, and then that's pretty much it, right? So if you win at that keyword, it's like a zero-sum game. So this is not something I'd like to sort of share at this stage. I can share it probably next year. So what we've been doing, but other than that, I think I'll leave it at here. Overall, what it is just researching, the keywords that actually make sense for your businesses. I can give you like a quick example. Find, if you have like a lot of competitors and then one of your feature is shining compared to the other one, make sure this feature that shines is actually the one that people will find when they're actually searching for it, right? So let's say, for example, I don't know about ZenMaid, but let's say, for example, in the ZenMaid business for CRM for maid services, at some point maybe you do super well, invoices or something like that. So make sure that invoice for maid services is actually one of the things that's your face, because when people will come to your website through that sort of like keywords, they are expected to then search for this particular feature that is important for them. So therefore you want that to be, well displayed for them. So when they come there, it's like, oh, that's the sort of thing that I was looking for. And that would help, I think.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, see, we don't we sort of like not like optimize, but we do like minimal optimization for keywords after the content is created. So our
Right.
approach is that we create most of our content based off of talks from experts. And so I talked about that in an earlier podcast episode on my personal podcast on the Made Summit, that we run the Made Summit every year. We get a bunch of videos from all of the experts via the Made Summit, and then we write all of that content and goes up on the blog. So all of our content is optimized first and foremost for our actual readers, and then shortly after publishing, we'll go in and revisit and go, okay, is this organically ranking for any keywords on its own, or are there any keywords that we've researched in the past that maybe we want to kind of align this article with? And we've got pretty strict rules there of we'll go through and do, I think, the canonical whatever it is. Yeah. That and meta tags and the alt stuff and all of that, that we'll go through and optimize all of those things. But we're very, very careful about optimizing anything that the user actually sees. So we're very, very against, keyword stuffing in the headlines or anything like that. But we do all the other SEO best practices, and we've found that to work really well for us. But I mean, of course, it helps that we're in a very non-competitive industry when it comes to the marketing.
I think one of the important things that
Yeah.
people should think of when they're considering SEO, I mean, you and I have 7+ year business, so we got content. It's there. It's been there for a long time. So sometimes it needs to be refreshed and stuff like that. But at least we got stuff to work with. When you're starting more fresh, it's like a brand new business kind of thing, and you're starting building content. What I want to encourage you to do when you're looking at SEO is specifically looking at how close to your funnel, how close to the sales, how far in a sales funnel your potential visitor are going to be. A good example for me would be people searching what is the best cold email software. And by the way, I think we ranked #1 on this one. But it's clear that someone looking for cold email software to use, and they're looking for the best one in order to start using it, versus, what's cold email, right? And I don't think we score #1 on this one. And it's very far. It's between someone getting awareness of a potential, solution for a potential problem they may not even have yet, to someone who is looking for the software to replace, in the next 6 months or stuff like that. So I would say, if you're looking at the SEO game, start with the further down the sales cycle, and then you could potentially expand more and more, and then get people, nurture them into your list sequence and stuff like that, the further away they are from the sales. Do you think that makes sense for people, Amar?
Yeah, I think it's something to take into account. For me, we've always sort of created the content that we felt was just the best for our users. That's always just been the way that we've approached things. But I think that mindset's really important. And yeah, it's something that I didn't think about enough in the beginning of, kind of what you were saying, is thinking about where in the funnel are they, right? Is whole tofu, mofu, bofu thing or whatever.
What's that? I like it, tofu.
Top of funnel, middle of funnel.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Funnel. And it's to just pretty much figure out, are they in kind of the buying mood. So ZenMate actually has very little bottom of funnel content. That essentially everything that's bottom of funnel is essentially our main pages. All of our content on our magazine is by design is meant to be valuable for any Made service owner, whether they're ever going to use our software or not. But then we do have a couple cornerstone, pieces that are on tech and automation and stuff that do convert folks. But mostly it's just to get people pixeled, essentially, so we can retarget them with the software ads. Most of our content is not meant to convert them. It's just meant to add them to our audience.
Yeah, I think it's a very critical point, is that having SEO of top of the funnel without necessarily, capturing them and then taking them on a journey, or being top of their mind as they go through that journey themselves, then I think it's a massive mistake, because people will have forgotten about your brand. There's so much noise in the industry, at least in my one, that people forget. It's cool, I got that great template and then it's fine, but then it will sit down in their download directory. They may not even use it, or they may use it once. Next year they're gonna forget about you when they actually need that software or something like that. So I would say the higher or the further away you get, the more you need to rely on other things to, stay top of mind, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's like, I don't know, some sort of like free part of your software or something that keeps, attract them.
Yeah. And that's a nice thing for us. I think that we've taken our time with SEO because SEO has never been our primary. There is no real like primary driver of success for ZenMaid, that they all play a part together. And so with SEO, the SEO is not all that valuable. What we've done up until now, it's not all that valuable without a lot of the other conversion tactics that we have in place with like the
Exactly.
Facebook retargeting and stuff like that. But the Facebook retargeting is nothing without the SEO traffic. Right. So it's interesting how they play together. But for us, that was very specific. Like that's why the ZenMaid magazine is just like, it's meant to be like the go-to resource for any maid service owner. If they have any question about running their maid service, we want them to find an answer on that page, and then to just see our ads around Facebook, around Instagram, and etc., until like they're ready for new software, or if they're on like pen and paper, then until they're ready to sign up. And that's
Makes
essentially
sense.
our playbook.
I'm kind of worried about the SEO sort of long term at the moment, because when I search for keywords now, the 5 tops results are ads. And then therefore the first top organic results is actually 6 in the list of things that comes. And I'm kind of worried about that. I think it's a move of Google to try to up, I don't know, maybe they need a cash injection of a few more billions, even though they don't know what to do with all their money.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think
it diminish, to some extent.
It's only if you were really like number 1 or number 2 does it really make a big difference. I think other than that, it doesn't make a huge difference, just because there's such a huge drop off after the number 1 and number 2 results. Like, anyways,
Yeah.
like I think that that's going to make SEO the slightest bit less effective, but still effective. Like it's like when Facebook took away all of like our organic reach. It's easy to complain about it, but it's free traffic, right? Like. I still think that SEO is going to remain a really, really like big channel and is worth investing in. But I do agree with like, I read those actions the same way, right? That like you sometimes do a Google search and literally like above the fold you can't find like a non-ad like link, which is kind of insane, and is definitely dropping the quality of the search. But like that's not gonna change my mind about SEO overall, right? Not even for an instant.
Sure. But it may mean that ads become more interesting, but of course more pricey. So
well, I already run ads. That's because our goal is to be everywhere, right? So for me, it's like I still want to dominate SEO and ads, and if ads become more important, then no time does that mean I'm going to drop SEO. It just means that I'll continue with SEO and invest more money into ads like at the time. But yeah, it is very much like pay to play, right?
Yes.
And so like I like that now because there's only it's a different game. And then the other thing for ZenMaid, which is something that we should really be like doubling down on, is that out of our competition, only our non-industry specific competition can really afford to advertise the way that we can. So now it being pay to play means that we're really the only ones in our industry that can really afford to pay to be on like above the fold.
Yeah.
Even if it costs us more money, it's a big moat because it stops other people from using that channel.
Exactly.
Like they'll figure out other ways to pick up business, but like for us being established, it's actually like a pretty good thing. I don't know. That sounds maybe a bit like cutthroat to say, but it's not my fault that the ladder's coming up after me.
Well, it's the same with Google, making pay for auditing in order for them to use their
exactly. No, because I know you were annoyed about that, and I was like, no, that's a good thing. Like
I know, but it's more my idealistic view. I mean, my capitalistic view is actually happy because I got less competition. But still, I mean, I like innovation, and I think it stifles it. And it's the same way with the paid acquisition. But I don't know. I think we're digressing, right? Digressing.
I think we've gone a long way off topic at this point.
All right, so
No, I think it's an
coming back
interesting.
to coming back to SEO, is there more thing we could tell the listener about SEO specifically, or is there anything you'd like to
I
know?
mean, my overarching kind of like approach to SEO is that in the long run, Google is always going to optimize for what is like the best result for their user. Whatever page people click to and spend the most time on, Google is likely going to assume that that's the best result if it's like an information search. So for me, we've always optimized for the user because we just felt like the best approach was to just have like the most engaged sort of visitors on the page, and that like in the long run that would like balance out with every update. So that's how I personally have approached it. I have a lot of friends that have gotten a lot of traffic very quickly by taking a much more technical approach. And I don't want to say even like a gaming the system approach, but they did like, focus on like, the technicalities of what needs to be where
Yeah.
to give yourself the best chance of ranking and all of that stuff, where like, we've done what I just described, and then we brought in SEO people after the fact, a couple of months, couple of years later, to come in and just be, okay, every single article, just go ahead and like optimize, XYZ.
Yeah. Another thing I would say, like speaking about like technicalities, because it is a highly technical game, or you can, yeah, like you said, not necessarily game the system, but help with a lot of those things. Speed of your website also can actually have an impact on SEO. If it takes too long to actually load the results and stuff like that, then Google will sort of like penalize you for that as well. So pay a little bit attention to that. Don't have like a super bloated website where it takes 10 seconds to actually load. Google really don't like that. They will actually
Yeah.
downgrade you.
Yeah, my only thing with that is just like if you're technical and you have good control over that, then that's something that's worth
Yeah.
spending like time on. If you're not technical, then just like keep that in mind the next time that you're choosing kind of a new like infrastructure. But like in
Oh,
my
I would
in my
give
opinion,
like,
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
I will just piggyback on this. Like when you're thinking about introducing a new plugin for your WordPress or whatever, just do make sure it doesn't impact the performance that badly in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's something to take into account, but like most tools,
That's
if
right.
you're adding them, yeah, it's probably worth it. I was curious though, and when I type in what is cold email, you're at the top of page 3.
3.
Just so you know, you're at the top of page 3. Cold email, the definitive guide for 2022. So
Oh,
that's
that 14,000 word, my book, my revised book edition that
no,
we
but
need to
I
actually
bet you that
improve.
you get some traffic from that search every month. It's probably a small amount, but I bet you that you get some traffic
Yeah, we
from.
could. Christian's been spending a bit of time to actually improve this in the ranking, and we need to look at some H2 and stuff like that to actually help it even more. So that's probably something we'll do. It's always like, effort versus return on the effort kind of thing, and I think it's
Yeah.
worth to do at some point. Because it's a good resource. Everyone who reads it actually, really enjoyed it and say, well, that's very comprehensive. I didn't expect that much and stuff like that. So it's a good resource. So if you don't know what cold email is, quickmail.io/cold-email. And here we go.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else like SEO wise.
Do you want me to pause the podcast?
No. I think that, all right, dramatic pause. No, I think that's pretty much all. I mean, I don't know. For ZenMate, I would say SEO is maybe 20 to 30%. I would think of like of our overall traffic. I would think somewhere around there, because we've got strong word of mouth, strong paid advertising, and then like partnerships, if you consider that separate of like of word of mouth. But I'm guessing it'd be like 20 to 30%. So yeah, I mean, I think that's overall pretty good, a pretty good sort of like coverage of what we do on the SEO front. Yeah.
I'd agree. So
So
it's just Amar and Jay Chatelain.
on
Give us a
Twitter.
shout.
Yes, that's give us a shout out, and then I will be publishing this. If you're listening to this, you're either seeing it on YouTube or you're listening to it on my personal podcast feed. But I will probably be doing another episode where I do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of our SEO strategies at ZenMade. So if you are interested in that, or if you have any follow-up questions for this episode, reach out to me on Twitter or drop a comment in the YouTube comments below or whatever. And yeah,
And we'll see you next time.
we'll see you next time.